What's on the planet of the Death Guard Primarch Mortarion that even those in the Imperium call the Plague Planet? What was the world before he got his virus-stained hands on it? What petty tribute exists to his home of terror? And what does the Guard do there? Let's find out. It was once the lovely world of Eliathada. The word means sublime soul garden, and it's this former Eldar world that Mortarion chose to make his own. From orbit, it is green, as verdant now as old terra must have been at the dawn of time, but some of its colours do not exist in the purely physical universe at all, and have names only the demons can pronounce. It shines like a lantern in the dark. On this journey, we join Vaux, who is a member of the Death Guard returning to the Plague Planet. The lander plunges down to the cloud level, and Vaux sees the familiar patterns of glow and diffusion. The entire globe is swathed in that humid cover, constantly changing, morphing, discharging and replenishing. The lander penetrates the outer level, and for a few moments the descent becomes rocky. Vaux relaxes, knowing that the transition is brief. Mortarion has generated these clouds to keep his realm shrouded from the rest of the eye. The Primarch ensures that they remain unbroken, lit from below by the exercise of his forgers and his devilish manufactoria. Those clouds are the most profound poison, concentrated toxicity all around his city, capable of dissolving entire starships if the whim of the god directs it, and only the Legion's own transports traverse it unscathed. When the Death Guard arrive here, it was a formless sphere studded with eldritch ruins and haunted by the thin voices of Xenos ghosts. The ghosts are gone now, for that species of indulgent semi-death is not tolerated in this place of dark fecundity. In its place, mountains have been raised. They are not natural, their sides glistening with the cultivated slimes are too steep, too dark, to have been formed by tectonics or erosion. Over 10,000 years, the pinnacles have pushed higher and steeper, crowding up against one another, until the entire planet's crust resembles a giant porcupine's skin, the valleys glowing with vivid green fire, the peaks as black as the soul of their creators. Every inch of ground below is riddled with the tunnels of an immeasurably vast army. Once baseline human, now a variety of subspecies, steadily ground down and remade into the image of beasts. They drudge in the toxin-thick chasms, hauling raw materials for new spires of filth, sustained only by the remorseless faith and the raw flesh of their own dead. They suck in spore-rich air, making their mutations gradually more flamboyant, and tread the old roads with packs on their misshapen backs. Atop each of those cliffs stand great fortresses, the least of them a rival for the great fastnesses of the Imperium. Green energy flickers across parapets of black iron, briefly exposing the steep angled profile of giant artillery ranks. Demon engines prowl the ramparts, their exhaust gouting black slurry. Immense shroud creatures swim in these sulphurous heavens, trailing long cloaks riddled with mould. Rib-thin campaniles toll endlessly in the discordant monotony, their dull iron-cast bells hammered by teams of bestials to mark the creation of fresh joys and miseries. Deep down, buried within the planet's unquiet mantle, are the fabled networks of laboratories, apothecarians, fermentation chambers, brew cauldrons, and rot pits. They merge into one another, bleeding into a twilight world of steam and toil, so that not one living soul, perhaps not even the Death Lord himself, knows their full extent. Spiralling chimneys vomit smoke every hour, adding to the inky, gravid clouds that swim across the Bioindustrial landscape. Rain falls in thick torrents, cascading down the steep fortress sides and washing filth back down to the base of the chasms. Bacteria burst and divide in those cataracts, breeding voraciously in the humid depths below, flowering in new and esoteric forms once the dim green sunlight filters back through the murk. This place is the Mother Church, the incubator for every biocreed and flesh catechism, the pregnant source, the fertile seed. It is all for dissemination elsewhere. The Legion will only rest when all planets are plague planets, and the bells toll out across a galaxy made into this image of spectacular decay. On the planet, Vox sees one Unbroken who holds the staff, and it is Wormwold, the last sliver of living matter taken from Barbarous and invested with all that world's spite and futility. Everything else was destroyed, but this final splinter is still clutched tight in claw-like hands. It is a relic. The reasons for keeping it beyond sentiment are unclear. After a long time, the land begins to rise, the black soils glisten with moisture, and dark leaves unfurl around them. Intelligences hiss at them from under warm shadows, and stagnant pools boil uneasily. Great menhirs lurch up along the roadside, warmed by an eternity of corrosive winds, and then at last the walls of the manse become visible in a caricature of defensive excess. The fortress has sheer sides set up from the green glow depths, hundreds of metres without handhold. The place is a mountain itself, an upthrust of tectonics, spreading far beyond all practical concerns, and into the realm of megalomaniacal insanity. Towers thrust and spiral around one another, all spiked and hung heavily with lanterns. Stone stairways coil around the tilting flanks of the halls within, sometimes leading somewhere, sometimes terminating in kill pits or smother pans. This is the court of the Death Lord, and it teems with supplicants, ambassadors, sorcerers and seers. Bestial men walk along the kilometres-long battlements in conjunction with squatting slums of demons. Trains of pilgrims file towards the jaw gates, so numerous that they fill the causeways across half a continent. Priests of the god preach at them endlessly, their screeds punctuated by the dull tolling of cracked bells. The pilgrims stare out from moth-worn cowls, their famished eyes waiting for one of their brothers to fall, so that they might chew on a little gristle that night. Above them all swim skyships with gun barges, each leaving lines of inky smog in the hot aurora night. Beyond those are the calls of the drifting clouds, eerie as a whale calls, shimmering in ghostly inscrutability. The gates are, like everything here, a parody. They are, it is said, 7 centimetres taller than the Eternity Gate on Terra. Just 7. Mortarion did a lot of things like that. Petty things. Medicor digs at fate. The cupola is slightly taller than that, raised over the Senatorum Imperialis. The walls are steeper by 7 degrees. Still, the effect is impressive. It takes 10 minutes for the Parody gates to grind open, hauled by chain gangs of bestials. Only once they've pulled apart can the gloomy interior of the manse come into view. A pile of tottering, half-ruined stacks of rotting stones jumbling and straining upwards, ever upwards, linked by crumbling spans and spirals, creating a fragile, bloated city that juts like a nest of thorns high into the clouds above. Mist curls around its foundations, boiling around the black surfaces and leaving filmy stains on the rocks. Greater demons bellow from spell goals, lodged deep in the magic-drenched towers, making them, the sodden earth, vibrate down to the world's core. Here there are courts within courts. In some astrologers consult swinging orreries and tilt their astrolabes up towards the narrow slits of thick glass windows. In others, alchemists toil over bubbling racks in yet more surgeons sharpen their blades against whetstones before turning to shivering figures strapped to their tables. Occultists with 7 eyes scribble on stone tablets, their quills dipped into the bloody slops of the still living. Demonologists bind screaming presences with endaubed septograms, while the air pops and wobbles from the vicinity of it. Butchers swagger up from the great refectories, wearing blood-stiff aprons, and pharmacists struggle under the weight of phage vials. It is noisy, burgeoning, unruly. Every stretch of flesh is poxed and shallow, every stomach slack and boil-marked. Steam pours out of brass censers, green-tinged flames belch from orifices carved within pulsating flesh walls. The chambers run deep into the earth below and high into the teetering spires above, all jammed with life and death and the many states in between. Vox and Sloan do not pause to observe the wonders. Eventually they arrive at the inner doors, modelled on one of the sigilite's own portals, though larger, and with the old Terran designs bastardized into earthly reflections of the god's peculiar whims. Two Death Shroud wait there on either side, motionless, almost invisible in the cloying dark. They say nothing, but the doors sigh open at Sloan's approach. This is the inner court. The floor is glassy with ice. The dark pillars glitter faintly. The clouds of files are sluggish. Just inserting here, listening to it back, I of course meant the clouds of flies are sluggish, and they crawl rather than buzz across the shadowy vaults. Vaux walks down a long nave. In design it is Imperial Gothic, imposing, solid, grave. His footsteps resound eerily in the high places between columns. At the end of the nave there is a throne, shrouded in shadow. Long banners hang from spears set into the arches above, each inscribed with the names of worlds. Scrolls lie on the stone floor, half frozen, their scripts a melange of human and Xenos tongues. The throne is high-backed, fluted, and crowned with a raggedy peak of skulls. Thick cobwebs smother it, and swollen spiders squat at the hearts of them. It is far grander and bigger than any designed for mortals. It was smaller when it was first made, but its granite and ebony frame had gradually cracked and extended, swelling out along with the bulk of its owner, and there sits Mortarion, Demon Primarch of the Death Guards, at the heart of it all. If you enjoyed this video on the Death Guard, try this one about Grandfather Nurgle.